Today we're going to be talking about high-stakes testing. As No Child Left Behind goes up for reauthorization later this year, this has become a key issue in education policy, and that particularly it's important for politicians to take a look at what it means for students, as well as also teachers who are in classrooms and are going to be measured by these assessments. And so today I'm going to be talking with the teacher about their efforts at dealing with the requirements of No Child Left Behind, as well as also the pressures that are put upon them, as well as also maybe the comforts that are put upon them by the tests that are given. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at NewsEd, Ms. Cuevas. Nice to have you come in and sit and talk with us. Today our big topic is going to be talking about No Child Left Behind. And just as a general note for our viewers, how long have you been teaching?
8 years.
So, in your 8 years, you've seen a lot of presidential reforms come through. And so how has No Child Left Behind impacted your classroom?
I think it's been, people use it as a term that I think sometimes they think it's to do with testing and what kind of testing has been brought into our classrooms. I think the good side of No Child Left Behind is that it brings into the spotlight a lot of the gaps that exist and maybe why they exist, and as far as as far as ability to reach students, it's helped us in finding out. I think the counties have gotten very strong in finding out what kind of grants are out there, what kind of materials can be brought into the schools, and activities and programs that can kind of close our achievement gaps, which I think is very beneficial. I think as far as No Child Left Behind, when it does come to the testing, I think it's important for all of us to remember that it's not just about a test, whether it be the SOLs or whether it be a final score, that these students have to have real life skills when they leave these buildings. And to do that, there is no one set of coursework or remediations, or it's got to be a combination approach. Our students need to learn how to advocate, self-advocate, to find out, how they can bridge their own gaps. Their voice is going to be stronger in the real world if they can learn how to do that, and hopefully through some of the programs with No Child Left Behind, they'll have more opportunities to do that. Not to say that we weren't focused on that prior to No Child Left Behind. I just think that it's very important that that we know now that some of the programs are in place, that we stay focused on why they're in place and what their true meaning and value is, and that's that our children have real life skills when they leave these buildings, and they can go on and self-advocate in the real world and check their own understanding and see what they need to do, to enhance their education and be lifelong learners, not just for a curriculum or one class, that it's a whole education.
And so, looking at the whole education, as a teacher who's not from an identified area under the No Child Left Behind law, do you feel any type of pressure in terms of the results that you need from your kids and closing the gap as you talked about?
I do. I mean, sometimes we have, students miss our class to do their test retakes, or for or they have remediation for their core classes that is already pre-scheduled during study halls, and then it's hard to get some of those students back into a non-core where we don't have scheduled remediation times as our teacher duty. It's sometimes hard to get those students back in because they do have valid commitments after school and before school. They're very involved. They have weightlifting and dramatics and all kinds of things that they're doing, or just can't get to school early or stay late. They don't have, we have activity buses and things like that, but sometimes it's hard to get them to stay, especially when they have a remediation time that's scheduled during the day for their other classes. And it's not a huge problem, but it is something that I sometimes get concerned about with.
So if you could offer one piece of advice to politicians that are considering reauthorizing No Child Left Behind, what would you tell them?
I think it's always important to make sure that they are talking to teachers in classrooms across the curriculum, and to realize that, for example, language learning or public speaking, drama, things that we don't see as listed under the core curriculum areas of study, that they still very, very, very much play a role in how the child performs in their core classes and how they, you know, perform beyond the classroom setting, which is what we're preparing them for. In order to do that, you know, make sure that you talk to a wide variety of teachers. I think at the local level, something that I saw years ago that I thought was great was some of the government officials would just come into the school, you know, walk around, have lunch every now and then with the kids, talk to them, like, so, you know, what kind of things you're doing in your classes, and then when they, you know, that kind of, we say trickle down, but that kind of floats up as well, where then when they're talking to people who are actually making policies, they have a real voice from the students and the teachers as to what's going on in the classroom and what's needed. I think when you're looking at No Child Left Behind, you have to start where the kids are and not just from, you know, a point of view of what test scores are, but go and talk to the students and the teachers and make sure that you have all the pieces in addition to the numbers, just so that you can ensure that the right need is being met.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davis, for coming out and speaking to us. We really appreciate it here at NewsEd.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome.